Mass Effect, BioWare's flagship space opera RPG, is famous for a lot of things. Its epic scale, its Paragon Renegade system, its large, expansive universe and interesting stories within it. Even its third-person action combat, although that's probably lower on the list for most people. What Mass Effect is most known for, to me, and I think to most people, is its amazing companions, the most detailed of all of the characters, and people who you get to build relationships, sometimes romantic, sometimes just platonic friends, and usually of very diverse and interesting characters.
And this is our top 5 favorite Mass Effect companions. We each have a list of 5. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video.
Yep, like, subscribe, comment, tell us about your favorite Mass Effect companions, all that stuff.
Notifications, I'm kidding, I don't really care. If you want to, do it.
Yep. This is our top 5 Mass Effect companions. So, Nate, you want to start it out? What is I'm throwing it on you. I'm throwing it right on you. Or do you want me to start it out?
No, I'm good now. I can start.
Alright. What is your 5th favorite Mass Effect companion? The bottom of the list of the top.
Yeah. Bottom of the top. My 5th place companion is Liara.
Liara Tassoni. A companion
Yes.
in all 3 games, you put her on the bottom.
Well, she's still on, in the top 5. But
That's true.
I think that she's a pretty good character overall. Like, she has an arc. I think what shows her off the best is in a DLC, though, in the 2nd game.
Yeah, that does a really good job.
It's kind of like, I don't know, kind of just a little bit weird. It's mainly just like you're learning about her culture and everything, and you learn a little bit about her that is like separate from just her culture that she's a part of. But the 2nd game definitely like shows off her personality a ton. And in the 3rd game's, she's pretty good in the 3rd game. I don't know, she's kind of, it doesn't show too much other than just her culture in the 1st game. It shows a little bit of her, but like apart from her culture. And then the 2nd game with the DLC shows her personality a lot. And then the 3rd game, she's alright, is what I said.
Well, her personality is a lot different in the 1st game than in the 2nd game, though. She's a very different character. She does go through a bit of an arc. Yeah. She does have a pretty interesting arc. Like, that's a really unique thing, sort of. How she goes from this, like, archaeological stuff of wanting to know all about the Protheans, and she hasn't done anything else with her life, so she doesn't really understand how to deal with people. And then, like, Shepard just shows up, and, like, he's like, here's all of what you've been looking for your whole freaking, like, 100-year life.
Liara definitely has an arc, though, where she kind of goes from a sheltered archaeologist to really getting out there and seeing the rest of the galaxy besides just archaeological sites.
Like, she ends up doing the same thing she does. Like, she was focused in on the Protheans at first. She just wanted to know everything about the Protheans. And then, after Shepard tells her everything about the Protheans, she, like, completely widens her search for information to, like, everything. Almost, in the loss of Shepard.
And, like, this arc, I think, is one of the big reasons why she makes it on my list, though, is a character arc. That, and, I mean, she's likable and makes, I don't know, logical decisions. I don't know. I dislike characters who are just plain idiots most of the time. So
yeah, I mean, nobody really wants to have a complete idiot on their team.
Yeah.
I will say that Liara Tassoni is not on my list. She would probably be 6 or 7. I would say. She's a great character, like, for the reasons we've talked about, but I just have some other characters that are a bit higher on my list that I like a bit more. The only problems I have with Liara, why she isn't higher on my list, is her in the 1st game. I don't find her very interesting in the first game. She's like it works for her arc, and I understand who her character is, but in the actual game, a lot of her dialogue is just very exposition-y.
Yeah.
About the Protheans, she's sort of an exposition machine, and then she just like throws herself at Shepard.
Yeah, that's true. But then again, he is like fulfilling that archetype of, you know, captain of a ship that's taking her to see the galaxy.
And I mean, he's also got, like, he's the key to everything her whole life has been searching for. And I just think it could have been done a little better. It develops nicely in Mass Effect 2 and the Shadow Broker DLC, and in Mass Effect 3 it really comes full circle, but I don't know, she just gets beat out on my list by some other characters, like my number 5.
Who is your number 5?
There we go. Okay, so this is gonna make some people mad, maybe, that he's this low. Especially Nate. Garrus Vakarian is number 5. The bottom.
How can you
of the
do
top
that?
on my
How can you
list.
do that to my main man, Garrus?
Number 5. So first thing I will say is, you know, like Liara, to make it to number 5 on this list, I mean, you have to beat out some really amazing characters, like the whole
Like
top
20
10
other characters.
Yeah, like in the top 10 are just like such good characters.
Yeah.
And Garrus, I will say he's definitely like, of any companion in any game I've played, he's like the most. I felt like this dude is like my homie, like my dude. Like he feels like a true friend over the whole of the 3 games. And develops really well. And he's just a really cool guy. And if you've played the games, I mean, you know what I mean. He's a badass. He plays well into the Paragon Renegade dynamic, and he's going through sort of the same thing. And he's sort of a mirror to Shepard in a lot of ways, which in my opinion, the Turians themselves are mirrors of the Alliance and the military part of humanity, especially. But they're sort of mirrors of humanity, more
Honestly,
than some of the other races are.
If Shepard died, Garrus could have just become the main character of the game in a lot of ways.
Well,
he's already going through a lot of the Paragon Renegade, I don't know, internal conflict.
Yeah.
And he also can fulfill practically the same role.
Yeah, and for me, one of the interesting things about his arc, in the first game, it just has to do with the Paragon Renegade stuff. But in the second game, after Shepard dies, one thing that's kind of handled poorly is no matter whether you sent Garrus in the Paragon direction in Mass Effect 1 or the Renegade direction, he still ends up sort of going towards that Renegade path by going to the Mos Eisley asteroid, whatever it was called, I don't remember.
Omega.
Omega.
Yeah.
And just like releasing an onslaught of vigilante law, basically, and
I don't know.
a
It
place
seemed
where
to
he
be
could,
working.
and the red tape was gone. And that just follows more of the Renegade path, which is explained by Shepard dying. So no matter what Shepard did for him, Shepard's dead and sent him in a darker place. But what's interesting about that is he like builds this crew in Omega and sort of does like take Shepard's place in that small little area, a smaller mission. Well, kind of. I mean, trying to kill all the gangs in Omega is a pretty big mission. But he like
even
gets his
Shepard
own
doesn't
crew.
Really kill all the gangs, no matter how many missions you do to fight them.
Right. Garrus builds his own crew and then sort of tries to do what Shepard did, sort of trying to learn to become a leader from the first game rather than a follower. And then he gets everybody killed, and that sort of plays into him finally becoming that leader in the last game, where he is leading
himself doesn't get everyone killed. Technically, there was betrayal
No, but he
within
was
his
the
group.
leader. Yeah, but he was the leader.
But now imagine if
He feels
someone
responsible.
just betrayed Shepard and blew up the whole Normandy. Everyone would be dead.
And I suppose.
But yeah, that definitely
how-
is eating him on his conscience.
I suppose how the
Conscience.
Paragon Renegade plays into that with Garrus in the second game is the Renegade option is more blaming the guy that betrayed them, and whereas the Paragon option is more blaming himself for his failure in leadership. Whichever one of those is right, is up to up to the player, and you could definitely read different things into those different endings to his quest in that. But where Garrus sort of falters for me, and why he's this low on my list, he's still on the top of the bottom of the top. Why he isn't higher on the list, even though he's got all these amazing qualities, best friend I've ever had in a video game, except maybe Kim Kitsurugi from Disco Elysium. He's like the only one who's on the same level. He is very interesting in the regard of being like a unique species that is like their personality and how they operate is determined by their culture, and their culture is determined by like their biology, and we get this interesting like very alien feeling being on our ship who's changed because of differences in biology. And that's just what I personally find most interesting about Mass Effect's companions, is their unique personalities based on their species and how unique some of these species can be. That's one of the things I really like about Mass Effect companions. I also like, how they play into the main story and the main themes, which Garrus definitely does. Some characters play a bit more critical roles in the main story that may be a little bit higher on my list. And again, the only other problem I have with Garrus is in the final game we see him sort of complete that arc of becoming this leader and trying to somewhat lead the Turians in their fight against the Reapers. But he like goes back on his arc because he's like, "Oh, I'll follow you, Shepard, once you get your shit. Once you get me support, and I know that the Turians are going to be cool," which is understandable from just like a logical perspective, but it doesn't feel right to me through his arc. Like, he's become a leader, and he's been through all that hell on Omega to become a leader, and now he's just going back on it and just becoming a follower of Shepard again.
I don't necessarily think that would be more of a problem with his arc, because I think his arc, when he becomes a leader, he doesn't feel secure with becoming a leader again after his whole group dies.
I see what you're saying. I definitely do.
But you do know, like, he becomes a leader in the third game for some of the Turians. I forget what his rank becomes, but he starts leading some Turians. So that means he comes back to being able to lead, to then choose to follow again.
Yeah, and I think he actually makes some comments on that. So I definitely...
But
I would say his arc does work.
I think that also why he chooses to go with Shepard and become a follower again is because he knows that what Shepard is doing will be more impactful than what he was doing on the moon of Palaven.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I think there's a good reason, and it fits within his arc for him to have done that, but...
Yeah, we'll talk about Garrus more.
Turian culture is kind of bland, so if that's what you're looking for, is more... like, bland compared to the other cultures, that is.
Yeah.
But if that's what you're looking for in your companion, is their unique culture that goes along with their species, then, like, Turians won't usually end up being high on the list.
Yeah, and that's just personally what really interests me. And, he wouldn't be this high on the list if personality and character arc wasn't a really important factor in that, too. But I really like when... that unique biology and culture combines with an interesting character, with a cool character arc that plays a key role in the story. But we'll talk about Garrus more when we get to him on your list, because I'm sure you're going to have him. We'll talk a little more about the positives. And for every person on my list, I'll probably have to explain why isn't Garrus here. I'll be like, this is why I like him a little bit better than Garrus. Okay, this is my reason. But alright, Nate, what is your... number 4, favorite Mass Effect companion?
My number 4 is Rex.
Wow. That low?
What? That low? What do you mean? I got 3
4?
above him.
Man, I cannot. I, like,
I like
understand
Rex
putting him
for
there.
sure.
but
It's like, he's not my number 1. I bet you can guess who my number 1 is, but still, I don't know. Rex, I'll admit that I haven't played the 3rd game with Rex being the leader of the Krogan more than one time. Because beforehand, I didn't even have the 1st game. But after playing with him as the leader of the Krogan, for the time that I was able to, that definitely made me appreciate his character a bit more. But in the 1st game, he's definitely a personality. He's cool. He provides interesting internal conflict inside himself and the main character. And there's kind of interesting disconnect with him and some of his culture, but he's still trying to honor his culture in a way as well. It's interesting, because on one hand he notices, like, the Krogan fighting all the time is not good in the long run.
But he likes to fight all the time.
Yeah, but he likes to fight all the time. Like, but that part is also part of his biology, since all Krogan are more inclined to being aggressive.
It was interesting, that conflict between his biology and his culture, and trying to make it less violent.
He's got a higher level of logic than most Krogan usually would when thinking about violence. And beyond that, though, he wants to still honor his culture in a way. Doesn't want the Krogan to just straight up become weak. But he also knows that the Krogan aren't weak by using their brains. I think that was actually really interesting. He has really interesting internal conflict. Also, the fact that he just straight up pulls a gun on you in the 1st game, and you have this whole choice of just taking him out to make the mission, to proceed with the mission, make the mission go faster, or to, keep him alive. I actually really like the finality of that.
It adds depth and more consequence to his character, which makes his character feel a lot more impactful when he does survive through the whole games. Because if you kill him, there are significant differences in the 3rd game and minor differences in the 2nd game.
I feel like if I would have played through the whole series more than one time, importing a character every time, because I played through the 2nd and 3rd games a lot of times, but I've only been able to play through the 1st game and import characters through all 3 once. I feel like I'd probably
with the legendary, right?
Yeah, I'd probably put him on the list a little higher if I've played all 3 games based off the same character more than one time, just so that I could see all the differences a little bit better. But I don't know, he's definitely a good companion. It's just I got 3 more above him that I like. Now I'm gonna have to explain why this next one is above Rex.
I think you're valid in your reasoning, even though you've only played through all 3 games, linking saves with Rex alive one time, because that does mean a lot of people haven't seen the game without Rex, and that contrast gives you more of a feeling for his character.
Yeah, and it also, the major consequences in the 3rd game, that definitely makes it way better. I don't know if they, when making all these games, had all that in mind, or not, but
there was a lot that wasn't planned out. You could tell that, but they had a rough. They knew they were going to do something with the genophage, I believe, and that Rex held a key role.
When the Krogans practically reach the end of their arc within the 3rd game, It is such a huge difference if you have Rex alive or not.
Yeah. We'll just say spoilers for the
Freaking-
entire series. We've already
I
spoiled
mean,
a
I
little
didn't
bit.
say what the effect was, but
Well,
there's an effect.
I said that so we can now.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, the Krogan can actually have a valid future. It's very hard to assure that if Rex isn't alive. If Rex isn't alive and Reeve is taking his place, you have to do very specific steps to make sure the Krogan become a good species for the
Society.
galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Another
so that they don't
difference is-
kill everyone or get themselves killed.
I think with Rex in charge, I mean, there's still a
There's still a chance.
decent chance of
Yeah.
that.
But it's just,
especially-
you have to really watch your steps if he isn't alive.
Yeah, and even more than that, you can Reeve won't figure it out if you betray the Krogan and poison them with the genophage or the fake cure that continues to allow the genophage to grow, but Rex will, and will call you out on it, and I believe you have to fight him. I haven't done it myself.
Now, I haven't. I don't think I've ever just released the fake genophage. I've always, well, like the fake cure.
heartbreaking.
I've always cured the genophage.
It's heartbreaking, but we're not here to discuss the morals of the genophage, but I will say it might be the right idea. Only
Unless you
in
have Rex.
that particular case.
Yes,
But-
kill all the babies, apparently.
Number
is what the genophage does.
So number 4 was Rex, huh?
Yep.
Liara 5, Rex 4.
What is your number 4 favorite Mass Effect companion?
So my number 4 is Thane Krios. Yes, I have Thane Krios above Garrus. Everybody start typing in the comments and hitting the dislike button. So I like Thane a lot. He is he's only in Mass Effect 2 and 3, but I think he really makes an impact in both of those games. His again, what I said, I like the most is how unique biology plays into the culture of the aliens, and then how the unique biology and culture affects the companion and the character. And Thane is such an interesting idea of all that. He brings so many unique ideas to the table. Because the Drell, for one, which is his species, their whole planet, I might mess a little bit of this up, but I'm going to get the overview, the summary right here. The Drell were from this arid planet. They're like reptile guys, and that whole planet got all jacked up. And so the Hanar, which are the jellyfish guys, and live on this very damp, I don't know, I don't think it's like an ocean world, but it's very
is an ocean
moist.
world.
Is it an ocean world?
Yeah, for
So,
the most part. I
they
think there's
built-
some land.
I don't know if they put the Drell on the land, or if they built these like underwater cities for them, or whatever. But they basically took the Drell in to their planet, and because of that, Thane has this disease, which I'll get into that in just a second. But the Drell have been with the Hanar for like generations, I believe.
Yeah.
And Thane is serves the Hanar as a hitman, a assassin. And the interesting addition to this is that one of the unique things about the Drell is they have more than a photographic memory. Like, they literally remember every second as if they were there, if they really focus on it. And he goes through a lot of this. And this is such an interesting thing to pair with an assassin, a contract killer, and especially one who is moral. Like he
Quote
he has his
unquote.
right, he has his own ideas. The Drell have their own ideas about doing things in service of another. If it's because there's this weird societal thing. Basically, it's not a job. He has to. He's basically born to do this, I believe.
Yeah, something along those lines. As a child,
Maybe
he was
not
trained
born,
to kill.
but yeah, he was put into this service, and it wasn't really his decision. And because of that, he doesn't feel like he is responsible for all the people he kills, even though it's his actions.
That's
He
kind of
doesn't
messed up.
believe in it. He
Are
doesn't
Thrill like
agree with
slaves?
it sounds like it, basically. Some
That's
of them.
messed up.
But it's like,
What those Han are doing?
yeah, it seems like they probably, it's more complicated than that, and that's how they get away with it. Was like
Indentured servitude.
yeah, or like this weird, like not rituals, like traditional stuff. And
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, and he wants to. He doesn't really want to reconcile with anybody, or like his way of absolving himself of his sins, basically, is to just stop and just like accept that he's gonna die, I guess. But then he's also got a really interesting story in Mass Effect 2,
Yeah.
where his son, the whole thing where he was gonna kill this lady, and then she like stood up to him, and so he fell in love with her, and they became his wife. They became his wife. She became his wife. They got married and all that, had a kid, but he felt like he was a bad influence on this kid, and so he left. And again, that story is told very well and is made so much more interesting when he remembers all these moments as if he was there when he really thinks about it. So he has to remember his kid's face all the time, and how he looked at him when he left and all that. And then he finds out his kid is now a hitman. So basically, the exact opposite happened that he wanted, and you can basically stop his kid or encourage his kid to kill somebody, I think, is the other option.
I can't remember.
I believe that's
what
it is.
But Thane's definitely an interesting character. I would have probably put him like 6 on my list. But
even better,
I definitely respect putting him up there.
Even better in Mass Effect 3. He is just great as he's like slowly dying, and his funeral is so sad. And
I never got to see his
funeral. It's just really excellently done. It's really excellently done.
Is it in a DLC or?
It's in the Citadel,
I
believe. Citadel DLC.
I think I've just missed his funeral every single time. I've played that
Citadel
game.
DLC.
Oh.
In 3?
No, I guess I haven't. Never mind. I thought I did.
I believe
that's it.
I believe that's where it is.
I need to play through that.
That's extremely important when it comes to Mass Effect's companions. That's like the whole thing is showing off the companions.
DLC. I don't know. I think that most of them have their arcs wrap up before the Citadel DLC.
Yeah, it's just. It's like
I've watched a lot of videos of Citadel
you've seen
DLC,
all the big moments
but
companions.
I didn't see his funeral, and now I kind of feel bad because he's an interesting character, and I kind of wish I would have seen that. Now I'm gonna have to.
It's sad. You can romance him if you're a girl, I believe, which is kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, it's no different than the other aliens, I guess.
No, you romance him, and then while in bed, tell him to remember his wife.
Oh my god,
that's terrible. But I will say also, like, back when I first played Mass Effect 2 on Xbox 360. The graphics did not do him justice when it would zoom in super close to his face when he's having a flashback.
He would just look like Goofy.
Yeah, he'd look super goofy, but
he looks pretty good.
It was always interesting. Yeah, in the Legendary, graphics got super good compared to the original. But yeah, he's definitely an interesting character, and I really do like his arc.
And the reason he's above Garrus is because of how interesting I find how well his species and his unique biology plays into his character and culture, and how he's a really good character on top of that, and his death scene is excellent.
Now,
So Nate,
his like moral ideals about being a weapon, so it's not really him that's killing people, that isn't necessarily a new like moral philosophy to me. I mean, I've heard it in movies and stuff before, but I do think they do it in a really good way.
I've heard it in movies and stuff before.
Yeah, there's been a lot of movies and games that have used an assassin type character that straight up says something along the lines of, I'm just a tool to kill other people. I myself am not at fault. Like, that is
Making
actually
me point
not
out
as
that Thane isn't
but-
as unique as I thought. Alright.
But I think they do a very good job at integrating that into an entire species culture, and I think that that makes it more respectable than just about every other depiction of that moral philosophy.
And he's interesting because he's one, like, strange outlier of this culture, which Mass Effect 2 is sort of full of.
And you really can influence him into thinking that, you know, maybe I am at fault for killing all these people, and then you really make him feel bad about himself.
But that sort of works well because he does. I don't know. He has that realization, and it sort of gives him a better arc and maybe some closure. But I guess he probably would have had more closure if he would have just continued with his philosophy before he died.
He's like, yes, I was completely just in killing all those people, and then passes away.
But the stuff with his kid is good. His kid doesn't really have any personality, isn't really much of a character. But
yeah, he's kind of just an emo teen that wants to go kill someone because his dad killed people.
Yeah, but I think, even though that kid isn't the character, I think it's done very well.
How it affects Thane, though, is done very well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the kid himself is not very interesting.
But he doesn't need to be, though, because that's really all he plays his purpose very well.
Yeah, he fulfilled the role for sure.
But yep, Thane Krios, number 4, he's a really fantastic character. Nate, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Mordin Solus.
Alright.
Mordin Solus is a absolutely great character for a lot of reasons.
I agree.
Like, for one, we're talking about alien biology affecting the way that they're interacting with the main player due to their either culture or mannerisms. That is apparent every single time that Mordin talks, because, my god, he does not take a breath. And you can tell him that in the second game. You can just be like, my god, man, take a breath when he's trying to explain something. But, Mordin has a super good arc where he was involved in the genophage, and he can be the one that cures it, or you can send him up there with the fake cure and he dies for no reason. And
you shoot him.
Well, no, you can send him up there with the fake fake cure, and him not realize and die.
No, he dies because you shoot him, and he tries to go up and cure it.
I swear there's a way that he doesn't realize and he still dies thinking he did something.
You might be right. I don't think so. I know if Reeve is the leader, you can actually convince him that the genophage was right.
Oh yeah, I know that.
But he survives.
I remember that. But, I don't know. Genophage needs cured. I feel too bad if it isn't. But, Mordin having that whole arc where he goes from helping make sure the genophage sticks around in his younger days, to then you dealing with one of his subordinates from those times trying to cure it, and then him finally deciding he'll cure it in the third game. I think that all of that was a really interesting arc. And beyond that, he's just half the time super freaking funny. He says so much funny and hilarious stuff if you like go out of your way to talk to him outside of just what you need to say. If you just ask him weird stuff, he'll say funny things all the time. He'll sing.
And it's like, it's not just like
reference the guy from the first game.
Yeah, hold
the officer. Yeah, hold the line.
It's not just like random goofy stuff. Like it all, like you said, it plays into, you know, a character in the first game of the same species, and just different character things that make sense
telling
for him.
Jokes. It's just he puts stuff in a hilarious way randomly. He'll do that. Especially if you're hooking up with an alien of any kind, you can then go ask him for advice about it, and that is always hilarious. But, I don't know. I think that he has a ton of personality, and his arc works so well. Especially how he kind of has, like... It seems like he has this thing for the one female Krogan that he's trying to help cure the genophage with.
I don't know about, like...
He might not have,
what kind of
like,
thing?
You know,
You
romantic type thing. He might not have, like, a romantic type thing, but, like, I don't know. It just seems like there's some kind of interesting thing going on there.
Yeah, he sees that the Krogan women are a lot more like reasonable and understandable. I think that's sort of what I saw in it, at least, that the Krogan women sort of need to stand up and be more part of their society, and then more people, not just the Krogan women, but that extends to, you know, more people like Rex, that are more forward-thinking.
Krogan women be running around wearing practically the equivalent of a Krogan burqa.
Right. They're
yeah,
oppressed.
And are kept separate from the men, and like there's very strict mating rules,
which all comes from the genophage. Their entire oppression. I'm pretty sure they used to hold, or wait, no, they still hold high members of. They actually hold like a lot of power now that I think about it.
Yeah, but
I remember them talking about that.
It changed from being like, I don't know, more culturally profound into being more along the lines of they get to choose the mate, so all the men are worshipping them in a way.
Right. Most of them aren't in leadership roles, it's more of just
their mating rituals.
Right. Getting
and then also
what they want.
I kind of think to a certain extent, like, the Krogan aggression might make it, that might be the reason why they're wearing practically Krogan burqas, is because that could
I get
make
what
some
you're
compromising
saying.
Positions, you know. Don't want to go too in depth on that, or that can touch some hot topics.
Angry species are usually more virile. Virile.
Virile?
That's a good way to put it. Virile?
Yeah. Something. I don't know how to pronounce the word. I've read it, but I've never said it. I've never heard someone say it either. But, it's like Morden, in relation to the female Krogan, sees a lot of his interactions as poetic in a way.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Like, when he first gets her off of the elevator, and he's, like, holding his hand out for her and everything, and then Reeve, if it's Reeve, I think Rex also does it, just pushes him out of the way and holds his hand out. It's kind of funny, but I don't know, he kind of seems like most of curing the genophage is kind of, like, poetic. It's interesting.
That fits into his character. That's sort of why he talks about singing some, like, ballad or some not poetry, but theater.
Yeah.
Musical.
He also has interesting ideas on theology and religion, and that's interesting too. If you ask him about it, he talks about it.
But yeah, Morden is a fantastic character. I will say we will talk about him more in depth here in just a little bit, and then we can move on. We'll go back to him.
Alright, what is your third favorite Mass Effect companion?
Legion is my third favorite Mass Effect companion.
You know what? I kinda wish that I would have put him on there. Now that I think about it. He's a great character, you're right.
He doesn't get much time to shine. And Legion is just... For one, he's an AI, and he's not just one... You're just talking to one platform in the entire
of AIs all together.
Yeah.
It's a blockchain technology working together.
See how good their ports are.
All the blocks are thinking independently.
That's not good. It's all falling apart.
All the ports aren't working.
They're taking them away.
Shit.
All the ports are coming together. Flying off. What is going on?
Oh, shoot.
So, what makes Legion so interesting is because he is a Geth. He's part of the Geths, which are the main... Well, they're like the minions of the main antagonist in the first game. They are the number one enemy you fight. And all you know about them is that they are AI that were built by the Quarians, Tali'Zorah species, and they achieved sentience and said, screw you guys, get off my planet. At least this is what you hear in Mass Effect 2. They said, screw you guys, get off my planet, and they sent them out in flotilla in their suits. And then had just been hiding back there, basically. And you see them as nothing but enemies in the first game. And they're kind of interesting enemies, but then, towards the end of the second game, when you're in the Derelict Reaper, which is a nice little setting for a mission, an interesting place to find this being, you find Legion, who is just a Geth platform, which is what they call their bodies, and he becomes a companion. He's a non-aggressive Geth, which you haven't seen up to this point through the Mass Effect trilogy. And he basically tells you that the Geth you fought in Mass Effect 1 were like extremists, were like religious extremists. And that's just so interesting to me. Like
robots with a religion.
Yeah, just the whole idea of you had this idea that the Geth were an enemy, and now they aren't, or at least all of them aren't. And you find this more reasonable being, and how it's a collective of all these bodies and artificial intelligences.
Like Geth aren't even necessarily usually smart AI either. They usually are relatively dumb AI, which is like what we have in real life on Earth is not really smart AI. It can't have a real personality. But when they build up together into the same network and work with each other, that's how they form a personality. Yeah. I think that's kind of good context to have about Legion, is since he is a non-networked platform. At least not usually networked. You can have him set up.
And you find him with a piece of shepherd's armor on him, and he plays very much into the idea of, can we allow AI beings to live amongst us? And I mean, the Mass Effect series definitely says yes, we can. I think that's definitely one of the messages that, to a point, can have
unless
AI
messed up. There is ways where, like, I'm pretty sure you can have them turn on you.
Yeah,
and
but with
ruin
ED
a bunch of
as
your
well,
assets. Yeah, that's
definitely.
True.
I would say it's definitely pro AI. But Legion is just such an interesting character, and he plays into Mass Effect 3 even more, where there's a whole conflict over the Quarian homeworld, which is basically the Geth homeworld as well. And that whole thing is watered down a little bit by Mass Effect's Paragon Renegade system, and how if you have enough points in either one, you can make everybody make up. And the Quarians and the Geth will live in peace together, which it seems a little far-fetched.
I don't think it's necessarily bad. Usually in times like that, where there's some great distress, is when big changes can be made, like making them work together.
I don't think it is bad. I'm just not a big fan of the Paragon Renegade system and how it works.
Because there is no gray morality, it seems like, in most instances.
Well, that's not even the problem. It's just that you say, like, it's just, you pick one side all the time, and then as long as you pick that side enough times, the best thing happens. It doesn't matter which side you picked, for a lot of the time. A lot of the time the same thing happens, no matter which side you picked. But then you've got, like, the Genophage, where completely different things happen. But talking about Legion...
His name comes from the Bible for a person that gets possessed by, I think, like, over 100 demons or something. And then they call themselves Legion because it's more than one demon inside the same body. And it's supposed to... It chooses the name to represent the fact that there's so many Geth in one platform.
Eddie chooses the name. Legion says he has no name, he is just Geth.
Yeah, you're right.
And Eddie gives him the name, and then he's like, he tells you the reference, and
he's just like, this is acceptable.
Yeah. that sounded on point. That was an on point impression. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's about all I have to say. He doesn't get enough time to shine, but he's a great and interesting character.
I think that a theme that happens throughout Mass Effect, and that Legion definitely accentuates, is what constitutes life. And, like, can artificial life constitute as life equal to that of something that happened naturally? And that's extra, like, interesting with the Geth, since they're not actually individually smart AI. They're only ever smart AI in a large group.
Doesn't Legion become pretty smart, though, and he sort of becomes unique because of how individual he has been?
Yeah, but he has had
he's wearing
large number of Geth still in his platform, but disconnected from the overall network of Geth.
And maybe that's
how
what I see sort of in that is that we need that to be one unifying, everybody being the same thing, isn't what we should do, but we should split off into smaller groups that allow us to retain uniqueness and unique ideas, because he puts a piece of Shepard's armor on him, and we sort of see this as like uniqueness among him. Like, he looks up to Shepard, whereas the other Def don't really see that in any organic beings, at least from what we know of. They don't have this uniqueness that his group of programs have obtained from being away from the group for so long. And I think that's interesting as well.
Especially any kind that Shepard's ran into.
And that's the number one reason I think he's so interesting, is because he gives you a completely new look on a villain of the previous game, and he's just a really interesting character.
We were talking about unique things that, like, certain species can bring to the table and make interesting interactions from. Well, he is a whole gigantic collection of AIs, so I'm sure that is very unique.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that comes with that. How, like, interacting with him is completely different than interacting with any other character, for the most part.
Yeah.
And his conflict in the third game just really works for me. And he, when I was talking about Garrett and Thane, neither one of them play too much of a key role in the main plot of Mass Effect 3. Garrus does with the Turians, but the whole Turian stuff ends up in being more about the Krogan and the Genophage and getting them in on it. Whereas Legion and Tally are really a part of that main conflict in the later part of the second act in Mass Effect 3.
And Garrus also, like, I don't know if interactions with him necessarily change big parts of the story at all in the third game.
Yeah.
So, Legion interactions, though, changed the story a ton. Like, one time, I didn't import character and played through the third game, and it's just like, oh, look at this interesting-looking Geth platform that we're looking at. It has some of my armor on it. By the way, wouldn't recommend that. Is just, it kind of feels like they just threw some stuff together to explain Legion in the third game if you didn't play the second game.
Right.
It really wasn't done very well in that case, but like if you played through the second game, then
if
it's
you went into the
interesting
third
when you
game without
find
playing
him.
the second game, then that's kind of on you.
Yeah, or if you don't import. In my case, I couldn't import back then. It was on Xbox 360, and it couldn't find my save for some reason, so it wasn't a very good time.
That sucks.
360s be like that, though.
Legion, great character. That's my number 3. What's your number 2, Nate? We should have did this for number 1, but Tally Zora, Tally Normandy. That is your number 2.
Zora, Faz Normandy, or Naraya? Is that the other last name she has? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
but
I think you're right.
I think Tally is my number 2, mostly because of the culture of her people, but she also, as an individual, can become very interesting as well. The Quarians have such an interesting culture, having to wear the suits from the time they're born, being put into suits to stay clear of germs, and having to live in the flotilla. I think that really makes the whole Quarian race super interesting, because they kind of have this whole utilitarian look on everybody. Like, if you can't provide for the flotilla, then the flotilla doesn't need you. You can't, like, live there. And they have this whole goal of each person going out on a pilgrimage to bring back interesting or useful things for the flotilla. And that's where you first find Tally, is on her pilgrimage. I don't know, as a like unique individual, she's got a good personality. She's kind in most instances, and she's very smart. She's not running around making dumb decisions 24/7 like some Mass Effect companions.
She reminds me of Liara.
Yeah.
Especially from the first game to the second game, where she starts in the first game, she's smart, but she's like knowledgeable. She's naive. You can say the same thing about Liara, and she has like a really cute personality.
Yeah.
Like, I think that explains like her naivete and her like innocence, but she also shoots you in the face, and she can hold her own against people.
Well,
that's interesting, and she becomes
hard
more
to explain her later in the later games personality. It's hard to really explain because I can't really think of the words to describe the personality that she gains later on.
She goes for being naive and more, I keep saying that, like not knowing much about the universe, but wanting to explore it. Yeah, sheltered to after Shepard dies, like a lot of other companions from Mass Effect 1 to 2, that's a real slap in the face.
Yeah.
And provides her with a real understanding of loss, and she ends up investing herself in saving her people and retaking their homeworld, which she does that along with like all of her people, most of her people. It becomes one of the major conflicts in the third game, like we discussed with Legion. And I think that transformation from a follower into more of a leadership role is interesting, and it is what a lot of the characters do throughout the series. It's a lot of the characters' arcs, especially the ones that are in the first game. And it really works for her, and she does really become a significant player in the Quarian, not necessarily war, but like Quarian goal.
Yeah.
In the government, somewhat.
Yeah, and I mean, Tali definitely has a better like goal that she gains after Shepard dying than Liara by far. Liara's goal turning into wanting to gain knowledge on like everything and become the Shadow Broker. It's understandable
for her character.
Yeah, but like Tali relatively has a better moral goal after Shepard dies in the second game.
I mean, Legion's character would sort of bring that into question, but
oh, well, that depends exactly on if you can convince her one way or the other.
Right.
On if Geth and Quarians can coexist. But yeah, the uniqueness of her culture is one of the most interesting things about her, and her overall arc is really good, where she goes from the sheltered, naive, innocent, but very intelligent character, like Liara, but becomes kind of a badass later on. Like,
yeah,
Liara also becomes a badass, but doesn't really gain a leadership position. Whereas Tali can definitely fight and also gains this major role in the third game. And I think that is probably what makes her character quite a bit better in terms of being a companion, is that mechanically within the game, interactions with her do matter, especially in the third game, and can affect the story quite a bit. That's about all I have to say.
Her romance is the best.
I wasn't gonna bring up the romances, but yeah, is one of the best.
We talked about Liara's a little bit. Her romance is the best in the series. I will say that straight up.
If you don't romance her and she gets with Garrus,
and that's fantastic.
Power couple,
I agree.
Right there, the biggest power couple. But I guess also, I was gonna say, like, as mechanically, her combat stuff is also pretty unique compared to most people's, since she has the whole like drone, combat drone that she throws out and everything. And a lot of other characters have repeats of other characters' powers. Like, most of them have one unique power. She seems to have a kind of unique combat ability that a lot of other characters don't quite fill, at least in the second game and the first game, obviously, where every character's combat abilities are way more unique.
Yeah, the first game has some pretty excellent combat. But
also has fewer characters, so you know.
True.
That's why it's more unique for each character.
Back to Tali's romance. What people really want to hear about? People,
yeah, of course.
Love Mass Effect.
This is what everybody's coming here for.
It's so good, for one reason, because it doesn't allow you to romance her in the first game, and that. Whereas both Ashley and Liara, for one, I don't really like Ashley, so I don't care about her romance. But Liara, her romance feels extremely forced and rushed in the first game, at least to me. Whereas Tali, you can't romance her, and so you build this sort of friendship and actually get to know this person, like, like most people would before they get in a relationship. I don't know about most people, but some
actually,
people would before they get into a relationship, and I find that more believable and more interesting as that develops in the second game. It feels more believable when she actually has known you for so long and then
yeah,
tries to come on to you.
I was gonna say, yeah, the romance with Ashley is actually probably one of the more interesting parts of her character overall, even though she's not a very good character, because it kind of has a unique take on like subordinates and their bosses getting together, and that, I mean, real life tends to be very immoral because there's like, I don't know, there's good reasons.
Do you
But
think
they
that
kind of
Shepard
expand on that.
Do you think that Shepard comes across as a creep?
I don't think he comes across as a creep, but I'm just saying, like, it can actually be either way. A subordinate can be the immoral one also, because they can be purposefully trying to seduce a boss to move up the ladder, but it tends to be somebody in a position of authority.
That's interesting,
But
though. I would not have thought that that would be a element of that.
they do make a like interesting outlook on that in a certain way through the romance with Ashley, but she's definitely not in my top 5 characters.
I
know she's not in yours either.
Why are we talking about Ashley in our top 5 favorite Mass Effect characters? She is nobody's top 5 favorite Mass Effect character. Comment down below if she is, because I don't believe you. And I'll comment that you're a liar, because I don't believe you. Ashley is not your favorite character. Companion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Are you
But
ready to move on from
Tally's
Tally?
pretty great. Her romance is just great in the second game and third game and Citadel DLC, except her terrible song. That is just terrible.
I don't think I've heard that. I'm gonna have to YouTube this.
It's so bad. She sings to you in the Citadel DLC, and it's
Also,
extremely
her accent-
cringeworthy.
Her accent, the voice actor, sounds adorable. And I'll straight up say that. And
I think there's a little bit of editing going on in there to make it even more so.
Yeah, but the accent is interesting too. I don't know.
Yeah,
all
is
the
unique.
Quarians have an interesting
And
accent.
I think what adds to it as well is the mystery of her being in that suit, and a mystery adds to it. It's
I mean, yeah,
adds a sense of intrigue.
That's a legitimate psychological thing. The only thing you can really see is the eyes. There's a legit theory about that. But are you ready to talk about your number 2 favorite Mass Effect companion?
I am ready to talk about my number 2 favorite Mass Effect companion. Beep, beep.
Yes. We gotta say it super robotically.
Like Legion. I should have said
like
that for the
Legion.
Legion one. I should say my number. I don't know how to do that. My number 2 is Erdnot Rex, the big man, the big myth,
man.
the big legend, the leader of the Krogan people, and he is just such a great character. He in the first game, he's an absolute badass. He is a bounty hunter, and he sort of hates his species for doing it, though. We talked about the duality of him, his personality against his species and his biology. And we see this in the first game very well, with most of the Krogan have ran away, and not ran away, but they've searched for battle in places other than their homeworld. A lot of them have, just searching for battle wherever they can. And he is one of them. He just basically followed in the footsteps of all the other Krogan before him, but only after he tried to unite the Krogan and failed miserably, getting his ass beat by his father. Which is interesting, him holding a him being the son of the Krogan leader, and how his father is much more into all the old ideals. And it's actually strange how in between Mass Effect 2 he goes back and just like takes him out, I guess, and takes over. Now we don't have like a part in that at all, but it's believable. Like it's like Shepard doesn't have to be there for every significant moment in these characters' lives. Um,
Just like they're born and Shepard's just standing on the other side of the room.
Just like it's creepy as hell.
Will become a great crew member in about 20 years.
He's an ancient god. He's like the Watcher.
Well, of all the characters or companions in Mass Effect, Rex would be the one to make some huge badass change, and probably have the most epic of badass fights off screen without Shepard. He would be the one to do it.
And yeah, like we talked about, him being able to die in the first game is super cool, and that having major consequences through the other games. And he plays a less significant role in Mass Effect 2, but he's still there, and he provides a similar role to Liara without that DLC, where he's an interesting character that plays off Grunt, one of your companions, and develops through Grunt's story. Or not, Rex develops a little bit, and we just get to spend some time with him. But then he really comes to his own and really culminates all in Mass Effect 3, and his character arc and the whole Krogan Genophage stuff is the strongest stuff in Mass Effect 3. It's that whole part is one of the strongest parts of the entire series, and the fact that he will figure out if you fake the genophage is cool, and how he straight turns on you. Like through multiple times in the series, he can turn on you, and I like that. It fits with his character, and he's just really cool. He's a great leader. Yeah, like I was talking about, the biology is what really interests me, how the biology and the culture affect the character and the being, and we see that a lot with Rex and his clashing of ideals and biology. And it's not that he is at all against violence. Like, he still thinks the Krogan should be extremely violent. They just need to turn their violence towards somebody other than other Krogan. They need to unite. He's basically a fascist. He basically wants a fascist government where they all unite and go against something else. So,
but he also, like, you can make sure that he doesn't plan on making the Krogan just wipe out every other species in the galaxy too.
That's I don't know. The thing about the Krogan is I feel like they always need an enemy, like a fascist government.
Oh yeah. Why can't they just make the enemy something that isn't, something they have to physically fight?
Because they're Krogan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ideals work with fascists, not with Krogan. That's the big difference.
I would say, though, that it is really interesting that from the first game, during the time that you have the chance to either kill or spare him, he's just a bounty hunter with an interesting philosophy on his culture. And you can straight up just murk him in the first game, back when he's so unimportant. But if he was to stay alive, he becomes the leader of his people and can lead the Krogan towards a better culture and better lives for everyone in the galaxy if you make sure to make the right decisions. But
and it makes
if you kill him, it leaves a big power vacuum when his dad dies. That
first game and this whole thing where Saren has basically cured the genophage and is creating an army of clones of Krogan, and so Rex is like, oh my gosh, he cured the genophage. Like, he's became a bounty hunter and somewhat given up on his people, but this like provides him with a little bit of hope. Like, oh my gosh, and so that's why he threatens to kill Shepard, because he's not letting you destroy this. And if you have enough Paragon or Renegade, you can convince him that it's the right thing to do, and that adds so much to that, to the third game. And he even says, like, you betrayed me once, or not you betrayed me, you destroyed this cure for the genophage once, I'm not gonna let you do it again. And if you do cure it, and you have been like good to him the whole time, like he feels so betrayed, and you can really tell through the performance like how betrayed he feels, and like you betrayed his entire species, and you were like one of the only people he trusted, and you wouldn't expect to get so much emotion, like, not that he's being emotional, he is, but you wouldn't expect to feel so much emotion for a character like this and a species like this.
Yeah. I was gonna say, if you were good to him throughout all of the games, that also increases his chances seeing aliens as something more than just an enemy. And
you know what the worst thing to do is? Just be good to him all throughout the games and then just betray him right at the end.
well, if you betray him right at the end, then the Krogan can't really do anything about it when the genophage keeps going. But yeah, Rex is definitely an interesting character. I completely understand him being that high on your list.
And he's very core. He's core to the best part of the series, in my opinion, which is the whole genophage stuff.
Do you not have Tally on your list at all?
Tally is not on my list. She would have been 6 or 7.
Oh my goodness, I'm surprised.
Alright, Nate. What is your number 1 favorite Mass Effect companion? I have absolutely no idea who this could be.
Oh,
it's
yes.
a mystery.
No one has any clue who this companion is.
It's a mystery.
It is my favorite Mass Effect companion is Garrus Vakarian. Obviously.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Private Jenkins.
Oh yes, Private Jenkins from the first 2 minutes of the first mission of the first game.
He's a great guy.
Yeah. You want never a more emotional moment than when Private Jenkins dies.
Yeah, the emotion I feel was I don't know. I don't know what I was.
You want
I was
relatively that kind of like defeats a lot of the points of the rest of the Mass Effect games.
What,
like,
Jenkins?
The lack of any consequence or emotion when one of your followers dies in the very beginning of the first game. He just falls over and you're just like, Jenkins! And then end of it.
No, you have a conversation about it. Caden goes and like closes his eyes, and you can either tell Caden. Yeah,
I think I don't remember that at all.
You could either go tell
just
Caden,
kind of leaving him behind.
You could tell Caden, people die, move on, or you could be like, he'll be remembered proudly.
Yeah, I didn't remember him. But still, that's not that impactful.
We went on a tangent here about Jenkins.
No, obviously James. James is definitely my number 1.
Oh yeah.
On my worst companions in Mass Effect list, that is.
Oh my god.
Okay. But the reason I chose Garrus for number
James
1
is the best companions from the Jersey Shore.
He does seem like he'd be on that show.
It's James Vega, the experience.
Yeah.
What's up, dude? I don't understand what's going on. I just want to punch my punching bag and shoot an alien in the face.
Okay, the reason I chose Garrus is because no other character in a game has seemed like their personality was so well formed and conveyed as him.
Yeah,
they
like the writing is great. The acting.
The voice acting is absolutely perfect for the character. They could not have chose a more perfect voice, but I don't know. His character has interesting personality. He is likable and intelligent. Most of the characters in Mass Effect are intelligent, except for James Vega. He's pretty dumb.
That's one thing Mass Effect does a lot better than like modern Star Trek or Star Wars.
But
all the characters feel a lot more intelligent.
yeah, and it's hard to formulate with the right words. For one, I thought that his design, when I was younger and I first started playing these games, his design I thought was one of the coolest, him and Krogan, and so then I like naturally kind of liked their characters more. But besides just his physical looks, where he looks like an absolute badass alien, he has a great personality with that kind of has a interesting and intelligent cynicism about him.
Yeah.
And I think that was conveyed very well. It wasn't like an unlikable cynicism that you see often in a lot of cynical characters in media. It was one that you can understand and that most people can agree with. And I mean, that's actually, I'd say, partially the success of his character is because people can understand a lot of his motives and his thought processes very well. And I think his arc was pretty good overall. I mean, we talked about that more in depth earlier, but I thought his arc was pretty good.
He has a cynicism about like the world, but he has confidence in himself and optimism somewhat in what he could do.
Yeah,
which I think is interesting. But he's not selfish
or anything. But he's also not a narcissist either.
Yeah. He's got a lot of inner turmoil.
Yeah.
But not enough, like not so much to where he comes across as angsty.
Yeah. I don't know.
Jack.
I think they did just a really good job. I'd say that the angstiness, though, with Jack was good. Because that made sense for her, like, goth personality.
Yeah, but that's why I would personally put Garrus higher than Jack. Because he doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't.
I think that is probably one reason why I like him so much, is they balanced the aspects of his personality very well, to where none of it was overfeeding a certain aspect to where it came off as unlikable.
Or cliched.
Or cliched, either of those two.
He does have a little bit of especially in the first game, the cop that's like the loose cannon cop that
yeah, that's
hates the red tape, and the chief is you're not gonna be in Citadel security anymore, Garrus. We're sending you off with the Spectre.
Yeah, that's kind of more along the lines of a trope, but
he's like they were flying a ship. They were flying away in a ship with hostages, but why didn't you just shoot it down? We gotta get him.
As the games develop, though, and his arc keeps on going through, it kind of like him going from just a loose cannon cop to a straight up actual vigilante assassinating different members of gangs and crime lords. That was actually really interesting.
And it fits very well with Mass Effect's darker tone, and brings him into that. It's a real dark point for Garrus.
Yeah. Even though, I mean, honestly, it's understandable. God can't do all the work. Garrus had to put in some of the work there.
Yeah, but man, when you find him in Mass Effect 2, and you could tell he tries to be all cool and stuff, but you could tell that he thought he was about to die. He had basically he was gonna keep fighting, but he had basically given up, and this is it.
Yeah,
and then Shepard shows up as a freaking just back from the dead, And he still keeps his cool about it. Like,
Yeah. But, I don't know, I have, throughout all the time, all the different games I've played, and all the time that I've put into playing video games, I don't know if I've had a character grow on me as much as Garrus. He's got such a likable personality, I think.
you need to finish Disco Elysium. Kim Kitsurugi is freaking amazing.
He's hilarious.
I love that guy.
Honestly. Sometime when I actually can beat that game, we definitely need to talk about it.
We will.
But also, Garrus is funny. And
Yeah.
it's not like funny in out of place moments. It's
not
funny.
like, it's not like haha funny. Like haha he's a clown funny.
It's haha like
Sorry, that was bad.
he's, I don't know, smart funny. But
It's
except
clever.
there is the moments where he's just doing calibrations. And they even make jokes about that in some parts. Somebody makes a joke about him doing
It's in 3.
calibrations. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if I have too much more to say about it. I
mean,
definitely like.
you
the
really could have
dynamic-
just said Garrus, and
Yeah.
everybody would have understood.
I
Why.
like the dynamic between Shepard and Garrus though too. Is like
Absolutely.
they pulled off a realistic and interesting dynamic of two old friends through the second and third game. Like,
And I haven't experienced it personally, but if you play female Shepard, then then his relationship is similar to Tally's, where you can't romance him in the first game, but you can romance him in the second and third game. And as I said, I haven't experienced it. I've heard that it's fantastic, and I think that it would develop a lot better with the not being able to romance him in the first game. And I can just, with how good of a character is, I can't imagine that that's not fun and interesting. And I know there's like, I've seen some stuff in the Citadel DLC with him like dancing, and it seems great.
it's classy. It's a classy
Yeah.
romance. And you know what? Even though I haven't done it myself, I kind of feel almost obligated to at this point.
I need to do a classy broad playthrough. Be a classy broad.
Oh shoot. But I was gonna say also, like, a good example of him and Shepard's dynamic is in the second game after you recruit him and he gets his face, like, scarred to hell on one side. You can just straight up be like,
Yeah.
slap some face paint on it and no one will even notice that it changed.
Yeah.
And like, hell, you were always ugly, Garrus. That's the beginning of that. You were always ugly, Garrus.
Oh.
Just slap some face paint on it and no one would notice. And then just shooting while on the walkway of the Citadel, shooting bottles, just chilling.
It's great. He's a great character.
Yeah. Okay. Enough of sucking Garrus's dick. Let's move on to your number one
Right, my
favorite
number one.
Mass Effect companion.
My number one.
I know this one. I know
Mass
this
Effect
one.
companion. Samara.
What?
And there are two
Okay, I
reasons.
did not know this one.
Two reasons. Two big blue
Okay,
jiggly
never mind.
reasons.
Never mind. I know.
No, I'm
this
just
one
kidding.
still.
I'm just kidding. My number one is Morden Solus.
Two big, jiggly blue reasons.
No, my number one is Morden Solus. Absolutely fantastic character, which we've talked about before. And I am noticing, I did not have any female characters on my list. I don't hate women.
Bigot.
I don't hate women. I'm not a bigot. Despite that joke I just made, which may make it seem so. Like I said, Liara, Tally would have been 6 and 7. Samara might have been 8. She is a good character, just other than her interesting parts. Um, but Morton Solus is just unbeatable. He is such an amazing character. He plays well into that whole unique biology affecting his character, which you talked about. He has such a drive to do things, to learn, and to succeed because he has such a short lifespan.
He ain't
And
got
that's really
time
interesting
to mess
to me.
around.
Yeah, and he has so much going on. He's hilarious. He's smart. He has a really good moral dilemma inside of him, and just like Rex, he's core to one of the best parts in the entire series, which is the genophage problem arc, whatever you want to call it. And he's just great. Like in the second game, he convinced me that the genophage was probably the right thing to do, and
So how'd you feel in the third game?
His companion mission is really interesting, where he goes and finds one of his old, I don't know if it was a student or like a partner, it was like a guy that worked for him, I think. And he's like working to try to cure the genophage. And it's so interesting that Morton thinks he's like so right about everything. He won't get anything wrong. And then this sort of is what I think is the initial like push into him realizing he's not perfect. And I don't think he necessarily thought he was perfect. He just thought he was an extremely smart and competent person, and that he could get things done the right way. And I think that his companion mission, where we see his student work, whatever it was, apprentice, doing, going against what he thought and being like feeling extremely guilty and scarred by what they did. I think that's when he really starts to think, maybe I've made some mistakes. Maybe I need to look at what I've done. And that line in the third game, where he says, if you talk to him about, like, say, I thought you said the genophage was the right thing to do. He says, I'm a mistake. And he says the delivery is so well, and I got cold chills right now just saying it. Anytime I think about that line, I'm just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
There's so much emotion, and it's just such an excellent moment for that character. And I will also say, shooting him, if you let Rex become the leader of the Krogan, then you can't convince him that the genophage is right. If you killed Rex and Reeve is the leader, you actually can convince him the genophage is the right move. But if Rex is the leader, he won't believe you. And if you still want to continue genophage with the fake cure, then you will have to kill Morton. You will have to shoot him, and he goes up in the elevator. He's like almost gets it. He's like crawling and slowly dying, and it's so sad. Oh, it's so terrible. You feel like garbage.
Did you do
shooting
that?
Morton? Yes, I've done it twice.
Why would you do that more than once?
I did it the first time because the first Mass Effect game I ever played was Mass Effect 3, and I was like 11 or 12.
Started with
and I rented it.
Game?
I rented it at the store. I didn't know any better. I was a little kid. I was like, the third one's gonna have the best gameplay. I'm just gonna play the third one. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. What is this? I don't even know what's going on. Let me shoot this lizard man to spread genocide, because I liked playing evil characters when I was younger. I still like playing evil characters. And then I did it again on the Legendary Edition on my Renegade playthrough. But Morton's just so great. He, like I said, his character can change depending on the situation. Like, if Reeve is the leader, then he will believe that the genophage is the right way to go. And that's interesting, that when presented with different evidence, he changes his mind. And he's just a great character, core to the series. The series wouldn't be the same without him. Well, the first game would, literally. Because he has nothing to do with the first game. But the second and third game wouldn't be the same without him. He is my favorite companion in the entire series.
That is definitely deserved. Morton is an amazing character and has a huge impact on the series.
So that is... What are you gonna say?
I was gonna say, also the voice acting for Morden was some spot-on stuff, and I'm sure was really hard work put into that, especially in the way he has to speak, even though they probably updated it some
In
to
addition to that,
make it
you have the
sound
fact-
right.
you have the fact that Mass Effect 2 and 3 have completely different voice actors for Morden.
They do?
And yeah, they do. There's completely different voice actors in Mass Effect 2 and 3 for Morden.
Then that is
Which blew
even
my
more
mind.
impressive for the
Yeah,
third
because
game.
you don't feel that at all. Morden still feels like the same exact character. And it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like an impression of Morden either.
I don't know. In his companion quest, you can help to convince him that the genophage was wrong, at least partially. Or you can practically help affirm that it was completely fine.
Yeah.
I think that's very interesting.
But in the third game, no matter what you did, he still
Yeah.
um,
He still
changes his mind.
Genophage. Well, also when recruiting him too, I really like where the one guy is criticizing him for having shot people and saying, "You're a doctor, you're supposed to save lives," and he responds with, "Sometimes you save lives by killing bad people." And
That's the real line. That's the actual line.
Yeah.
It's a great line.
And I was thinking,
Definitely doesn't sound
okay,
like a 5-year-old wrote it.
I was thinking okay, that's pretty cool. He both saves people with helping treat them and kill the bad guys who made them get injured.
Yeah, it is.
I
It
don't
does
think
make
I can really
sense.
do a whole lot of justice for most of these characters when I'm talking about them, but if you've played the games, you know what I'm talking about.
I think we've done a decent job at explaining why we believe these characters are as good as they are.
Those
probably
damn
could've did-
Batarians, though, they're always
We need a Batarian companion.
Yeah, no, we need Blasto. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, the first Hanar Spectre.
Yeah, and you see advertisements for it all over the place in the third game.
He's not an actual Hanar Spectre. It's a TV show.
Yeah, I know. But when I first found that, I was just like, wouldn't that be cool if you got to actually see how Hanar and Elcor fight? You never
That would be
do.
interesting.
But
I
how
feel like
it
they probably got
describes what
biotics or
Elcor do.
psionics.
Elcor have huge shoulder-mounted cannons because they walk on their front
Yeah.
leg things.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so they have to have AI-assisted shoulder-mounted weapons, and that'd be so cool to see be used.
Well, on that note, this has been our top 5 Mass Effect companions. Our top 5 favorite Mass Effect companions. I hope you enjoyed the video. Drop us a like if you did. Subscribe to the channel. See more stuff like this. Stuff that's better than this. Probably
Also,
a few
along
things that
with-
are worse than this.
I don't know, 30 minutes of tangents to add into this video.
Thank you for watching. Tell us what you think of all the Mass Effect companions in the comments below. Maybe list your top 5 Mass Effect companions down there. We'll see you next time. Oh, you may notice there isn't any companions for Mass Effect Andromeda on this. That wasn't a stipulation. It's just how it happens. Do with that what
and
you
I
will.
have not played it. I've not played the whole game. I've only played part of it, and I disliked it that much.